All right, Mr. Chair, we're streaming.
Okay, super. So why don't we call the meeting to order if I can get a nomination for that?
I move.
Second.
Second.
Colin. Good, thank you. Appreciate everybody being on. Why don't, from a housekeeping standpoint, let's talk about the minutes from last week. Those have been published. Any comments to those? Thanks for writing those up, Walt.
No problem.
I thought I looked at them. I thought they looked good. You're getting better at them, Walt.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I know you've only done about 20 of them. So if we're good with that, why don't we approve the meetings? If I can have a motion.
Motion to approve the meetings minutes.
Second. All in.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
I think two people said it at the same time, but you can write me down as the second.
Harris.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So before we get into the remaining projects that we've got on the list, and thank you guys for joining us and supporting us with your detailed work and all the work you guys put into this. Thank you very much for that. I'll just take a couple minutes and see if there's any remaining questions from the previous ones that we've reviewed as you guys have been putting together your documents, et cetera, is there anything we ought to talk about or that has come up or that's caused any heartburn? Any?
Not here.
Okay. All right, then let's move to the new ones. Walt, I'm going to turn it over to you to sort of orchestrate who's talking to what and order, because I think you sort of set that up. But I do want to thank you all for joining us and talking us through. As I've said many times, I was wrong originally in this thing, thinking that the scoring was the important part of this process. And we've all realized that the important part of this process is what you guys are doing, which is helping us understand the scope, nature, risk, and value of these projects as we evaluate them. So it's an important topic that we're getting ready to do, which is to hear what you have to say about these projects and give us an opportunity to ask questions. You can assume that we have read them, what was submitted, and we've all read them. And for the most part, we've scored them at least preliminarily. And as we go through, we sort of read them and think, are we really clear what the score is based on the write-up? Or is the write-up left a little room for question? And we normally are circling those or reading them so that we can ask questions based on the ones that we're less certain of. But there's nothing like a little voiceover narrative and perspective from you guys. So I'll turn it over to you, Walt, to do those handoffs, but thank you again.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So I like structure and order, so let's go down in project number order, starting from the top down. We do have 4 projects to discuss today. They will be project 15, the Rural Community Water District Water Tank, project 16, Rural Community Water District David Ray Road Water Main, then project 22, Airport Water and Sewer, and project 34 from the Waccamaw Regional Transit Authority, a passenger facility in town. So Mr. Will Cook is online from Rural Community Water District. First project would be discussion of the water tank. And I'm going to try to pull up, if you want to see documents, just let me know and I can pull it up and try to share my screen.
Thank you, Walt.
Hey everyone, my name is Will Cook. I'm the director with the Rural Community Water District in Georgetown County. I appreciate y'all giving us time to kind of explain what we've submitted here. So I'll just kind of get right into it. One project we have was the elevated water tank, which would be located out on David W. Ray Road. It's in just south of Black River off of Highway 701. And that would be a construction of a 500,000 gallon elevated water tank. The tank would provide us the ability to maintain adequate and consistent chlorine residuals in that area, maintain minimum pressures, especially during fire flow situations. That's kind of getting to the dead end part of our system. So just increasing that fire flow for existing customers and future, and providing a reliable emergency water source to our neighboring utilities, which would be Georgetown County Water and Sewer and the City of Georgetown. And it would also provide storage and capacity to the entire district that we serve, especially that northern part of our district. This tank would encourage economic growth in that largely undeveloped area. I'm sure you are all aware of. There's several planned developments that are being discussed in that area. A large portion of it is along the future Brick Chimney Road, which would be between Highway 701 and Highway 51. The impact of these developments that are being discussed, most likely at some point, it would be a little while, but at some point it would require this tank for everything that we've discussed. The impact to the entire system with this tank would probably affect around 5,000 people, which is what we currently serve. But it has the potential to increase to probably 10 to 12,000 based on what we're hearing is probably coming. With the potential for the future growth, we expect the district's customer base to increase, which would help keep, rates lower over time, and the county's tax base would increase too. And the estimated cost on this project is $4,819,650. So that's the one project, Walt. I got, the other, y'all want me to jump into that one too, and then I'll take questions, or you want to take questions and then go over?
Normally we just sort of hit them one at a time a little bit. And then at the end, maybe you give us a perspective on priority across different ones. What questions you guys have for Will on this one?
So
What communities, Will, what communities are they currently? I heard the future part, but what, I'm confused as to what communities they would serve currently. Like who lives there now? Is it Browns Ferry? What are those areas?
So our service area is from the city limits of Georgetown to Black River, 1 mile east and west of Highway 701.
I'm trying to share my screen,
Yeah.
Matt. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that orange, this is the city of Georgetown, if you can see my cursor moving.
Yeah.
And then the pink area is the rural water district, going out in 2 different directions from the city of Georgetown. And that
Was Kensington
area
in
here would be Wedgefield, to give you an idea.
Okay.
I mean, that's Kensington, and then Wedgefield out here. Yep.
I got you.
We serve a portion of Wedgefield, the Beneventum area, Waterford, Ramsey Grove area, and then on the west side,
Greentown.
yeah, Greentown, McDonald, Whites Creek, all the way out to Ports Creek so 8 Oaks is our last customer along 521.
Can you sort of said what it did, but can you talk about how significant or severe the problems are? Like, is this sort of an enhancement that, or is it, how severe a problem is it? You mentioned the chloride, chlorine, you mentioned during fire protection. Just talk more about that, because we're trying to figure out, is this somewhere between on the scale of irritation to crisis? Where is it?
Well, we're definitely not a crisis. I wouldn't say that. I would say this probably is more of an enhancement project at this point. But looking at the future growth that we all are aware of, it is going to create some issues. That's where the major situation is going to be. I mean, as of right now, when you start talking about chlorine residuals, yes, it would make our jobs simpler and easier in the sense that we probably wouldn't have to flush our lines as much as we do now. It'd be a little bit easier to maintain that consistent chlorine residual. We don't necessarily have an issue with chlorine residual. We just have to do some things to maintain that, what we need there now. And fire flow, of course, you have a subdivision already online out there, Peru Plantation. And there's a lower, I mean, it's adequate, but it is a lower fire flow than what the fire department encourages. Now, I will say, DHEC, what they require of the water systems is usually lower than what the fire department encourages. So that's an issue in itself, but increasing those fire flows would be a big deal, I think, especially coupled with that future growth that's coming.
Okay. Other questions on this one?
Yeah, would this project, I know it's a tank, but would it require another well? Where would the water come from to serve the tank?
I mean, as of right now, it wouldn't require another well. We're actually in the process of putting in an additional well, probably starting around August. We have 3 wells now, so we're putting in a 4th. So, I mean, just to have the tank, it wouldn't require another well.
Okay.
Will, could I follow up on that and guide us through the interconnections with other systems? And we've had a similar request, I believe, from Georgetown Water and Sewer Authority for an elevated storage tank. So would those two complement each other, or are you aware of what they're doing?
I'm not aware of where they were talking about, but I can tell you that we do have an interconnection along Highway 51. And we have an interconnection along Highway 521 with Georgetown County Water and Sewer District. So in a sense of emergency water source, yeah, I would say, I mean, in my opinion, they would complement each other. You know, if we have an issue on our end, they could feed us. If they have an issue on their end, we can feed them. So, you know, it provides redundancy for both.
Super. Other
Mr. Chair,
questions?
one question that generally comes up but has not yet been asked is availability of other funding sources.
Yeah, so there's always well, I say always, there's usually availability through the Rural Infrastructure Authority of South Carolina. So, you know, we could, I think they've increased their grant funding to $1 million. I don't know if that was temporary or not, but it's usually 500,000. So that's always an option. It's just not guaranteed. That's something that we would apply for on an annual basis. And, you know, hopefully that would be an option, but it's not something we can guarantee.
Okay. Last call for questions on 15. All right, thank you. We'll go to the next one, 16.
Yeah, so just kind of jumping into that one. This is kind of a trend, what I would call a transmission main for us. It'd be the installation of approximately 17,000 feet of 12-inch water main along Highway 701, that water tank site we just discussed. And it would travel along the future Brick Chimney Road between Highway 701 and 51, and then tie back in on Highway 51, just south of our interconnection with Georgetown County Water and Sewer. In conjunction with the tank, it would provide service to that large undeveloped area where these planned developments are being discussed. And that future Brick Chimney Road is centered in that area. So that pipeline itself would promote, you know, some growth along that route. It would also improve our ability to, you know, serve by fully connecting. We have a 12-inch water main, or large, we have several sizes, but we have large diameter water mains on the west side of our system, across the center of our system, extending up to Highway 51 of our system, and down to Pringle Ferry Road on 701. This would extend that, and it would allow us to loop that northern part of our system in that area. So it would kind of help get that water out to that area and interconnect all of our tanks and our interconnects with our neighbors. And again, this pipe would serve as an emergency water source to our neighbors, which are County Water and Sewer in the city of Georgetown. And as far as the impact to population, it'd be the same as the tank. Our system population now is about 5,000, and looking at future potential of around 10 to 12,000. And of course, we would expect the customer base to grow with this pipeline, especially along that route of Brick Chimney Road, which would help keep our rates low. And of course, that growth, future growth, would increase the county's tax base too. And the estimated cost of that is $4,481,291 at this time.
Questions on this one?
Are these two projects dependent on one another? Can one move forward and the other one not? And if so, are there any, you know, future issues that might be caused by that?
Yeah, I mean, one is independent of the other. Of course, they work better, you know, together. But yeah, one can be constructed without the other. I think the district's plans would, I mean, we would plan to do both of these at some point. Of course, development is kind of going to guide us on that, because as that development comes, you know, it depends on, will make a difference on where those utilities need to be placed at the time, especially when it comes to pipelines.
Okay.
So similar, Will, so you mentioned the future Brick Chimney Road. So the location of the line, you could put that in without the road being all the way complete, or you're going to have to wait till the road's complete?
I think it would be I mean, preferably, I believe it would be a project that can be done around the same time. But I believe the right of way is cleared at this point. I think there, you know, as long as there was some kind of stumping and things like that done, we could actually put the line in. But I think it would be preferable to do it around the same time as Brick Chimney Road, or even after. I think the right of way there would be plenty wide enough. I don't really see an issue putting the pipeline in after the roadway is put in.
Other questions? Speak to the funding for a second. On this one, is it a similar situation to 15 or?
It is. It's just really the same situation. Our funding source, other than something like this, would be done through the Rural Infrastructure Authority. And again, we would apply for that in hopes that we would be granted $500,000 to $1 million to put toward the project.
Okay. All right, last call for questions on this one. Thank you. 22.
Will, if you just want to sit around, that's fine. If not, no shame in dropping out.
I'm sorry, I did want to ask Will a question.
Yep.
So Will, you've got two that you're sponsoring on here, 15 and 16?
Yes, sir.
What would your priority between those two be?
Our priority would be the elevated tank.
Okay.
You know, it's just with the future development we see in that area and what we believe is coming. We need to have that storage and capacity for fire flows and just service in general, and along with maintaining our existing customers.
Super. Thank you very much, Will. You're welcome. Like you said, stick around because this is exciting and enjoyable stuff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Or go back to your day job. But we do very much appreciate this. On a serious note, we appreciate all the hard work you put into this and the work you do every day.
Thank you all. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
I guess James on the airport number 22, please. Thank you for showing up.
Oh, no problem. Walt, do you have the development map available?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. I'll have that pulled up.
What our project is purely economic development. It is potential jobs creation. It is.
This one, Jim?
Yes, sir. It is taking unused ground at the Georgetown County Airport and converting it to economic development space. Excuse me. We are, as I started my application letter out, we're being forced to grow. We're the only airport along the coast that has available land to develop. Charleston's built out, Myrtle's built out, and we're directly between the two. And business customers are starting to realize they can land at Georgetown, drive a half hour, 45 minutes north or south, take care of whatever business they have in either of those locales, and then back to their airplane and back to their home base. But more importantly to me and to the county, economic development wise, businesses are starting to pay attention to the Georgetown Airport. With the Sherpa news 2 years ago, with that company locating their aviation business to Georgetown, that opened up doors and it opened up conversations with other business entities looking to potentially develop here in Georgetown. We have 645 acres here that is untouched. The map that's on the screen, or the drawing that's on the screen, is what I call our infield triangle. I'm looking at it right now at my office window. That area could be utilized for additional aviation related businesses. It could be used for last mile freight distribution. If you see on the left side of the screen, on the left side of the runway, we have freight terminals drawn out. Our primary runway was strengthened 2 years ago. We went from a 60,000 pound landing capacity to 115,000 pounds. So we can take heavier aircraft, Group 3 category aircraft, which Group 3 means 100-foot wide wingspan and heavier cargo configuration weight. Our secondary runway 11 and 29, we're about to reconstruct that runway, and that'll also aid in the economic development potential this airport represents to the county. When I say aviation related businesses, aviation jobs are typically a higher paying job. Starting salary over at the Sherpa complex, I believe, was $60,000. That's considerably higher than the typical starting salaries in Georgetown County. What we are attempting, or what we're applying for, is just sewer and water infrastructure. I worked with Tommy over at Water and County, or Water and Sewer District, and he developed a plan or a pricing structure of what it would take to do the entire infield triangle area. Come in at 1.8 million. That is the first step to creating what's on the screen right now. This has the potential of, once it's all built out, 250, 300 million worth of investment, a minimum of 100 jobs, probably north of 200 jobs. It all depends on who and what facility needs a particular business would have. Really, I don't have much more to talk about other than the fact that what you're looking at, the county paid considerable money to have W.K. Dixon develop the plan. That plan was morphed off of my hand sketch drawing of 2018, just trying to have something to show potential business people that are coming, that where they could build a location here in the airport. This drawing is truly the next 30 years of Georgetown County Airport. It's a game plan. It's a game plan moving forward.
And Jim, for clarification, correct me if I'm wrong, the water and sewer lines approach the airport. This would just be getting them under the fence and onto the property, correct?
Negative, Walt. We brought water, sewer, internet, power in through the back gate out by mosquito control, Walt, over on the decommissioned runway to feed the first Sherpa building. And what water and sewer would do is tap onto that and feed the entire infield triangle area. And that, Walt, it includes a pump station.
Thank you.
Talk, if you would, a little bit about how, trying to think of the right words, investment for this kind of thing in an airport kind of situation that's an economic development kind of thing, and an important one, like has historically or typically works. How did money originally get created to fund this stuff? is it essentially the concept of a, a development park or manufacturing park or a logistics park that gets created? And does the state or other things fund this? I'm like, just maybe a little education for us on how that usually works would be helpful.
Typical airport funding, the FAA is the big pot. FAA is 90% money, followed by 5% on the state and 5% local. The FAA only funds a primary airport and safety issues.
Okay.
Any development, any new hangars, any new taxi lanes, that is county and state. That comes in at a 60-40 split if the state has the monies available.
Okay.
I say if there's some bills going through the House right now that they're trying to reduce the funding the state provides South Carolina Aeronautics. So that's typical airport funding. But my thought when I came to Georgetown, looked at the airport, is to develop public-private partnerships. Take a hangar for an example, an aircraft hangar. To build one, typically it's $1 million. And then if the county built it, they would have to cover the money costs, cover the O&M, cover the utilities, all for the benefit of picking up 5-6 different aircraft based on the airfield. My thought is, let's let a private individual foot the bill, pay for it, lease the land, and then in 30 years, that building becomes property of the county. But in the meantime, we get the same net results. We get the additional aircraft, potential additional fuel sales, additional maintenance sales, and taxes. It just makes more sense. And then relating that to this project, we would ultimately phase out this project. The same public-private partnership concept, we could put out an RFQ or an RFP looking for developers who may want to do phase one in its entirety. Obviously after all the utilities are laid out and we get the asphalt lined up, but that's funding for an airport. Federal, state, local, and then public funding.
James, if it's okay for me to ask, who are your current partners in this public-private investment endeavor? I mean, is the county in any way seeking to help economic development? Are they working on convincing folks to come this way? Is commerce, state commerce, engaged with as in their job of attracting businesses and steering them towards this airport that has all this ability to expand?
The state is engaged. Our former economic development director, Tiffany Harrison, made sure of that. Just yesterday, our county administrator brought Santee Cooper people here to talk about exactly what you're looking at on the screen now. Yes, there is focus to steer, if you would, people to the airport for economic development. Our current economic development director, Maya Morant, she and I have been working hand in hand, talking to various people since Tiffany departed. So yes, there is a conscious effort to look at the airport as a catalyst for economic development or another quasi-industrial park for the county.
James, y'all have done a great job at the airport. And it's incredible what's going out there on the private side. I was thinking about some of the commercial side, with the big carriers like UPS, DHL, United States Post Office. Would there be potential like that? And also, we have a Coast Guard station. Would there be potential for a Coast Guard station? Is there anything like that that would be RFPs from big postal packaging and or government stuff?
Absolutely. Last mile distribution is my big thing. Georgetown County is just far enough away from Charleston and Myrtle. That's where UPS and FedEx land. They have to load it onto a truck, and to get from Myrtle to RD Georgetown could take hours. If we had our own sort facility here, that's a perfect situation. I can feed Georgetown with a quote feeder aircraft, which is typically a 208 Cessna Caravan. And that same delivery that would cost UPS or FedEx 2.5 hours worth of labor and gas to get it to RD Georgetown could happen in half the time, a quarter of the time.
Minutes, yeah.
And that's what we were designing on the left side of your screen, last mile distribution ideas. Also, we're also working on a property right outside the fence towards on Highway 17. That would be another fantastic last mile distribution area. But yes, that is, excuse me, we're setting up for a weekend open house. The B-29 rolled in today, and that's the fence people to control the public. I lost my track there. But yes, last mile distribution. The Coast Guard's a phenomenal idea. I didn't even think of that. They currently base the helicopter in Charleston. They come up here every Wednesday and practice right out in the bay. They land at the airport, load up the local people, and they practice retrievals right out in the bay, just a mile to the east of me.
Gary's our idea guy, and occasionally he'll have a good one.
Every now and then. Every now and then.
Jim, you are currently undergoing like a new designation for the airport, correct?
Yes, I'm attempting to do the impossible. The Georgetown Airport is not commercially designated from the FAA. They call it a Part 139 certification. I always start the conversation with commercial does not mean airline passenger traffic. I don't want it here. We're not big enough to handle it. We do not have $5 to $10 million in excess funds to build a TSA facility. The county does not have, well, the county doesn't have the horsepower behind it to hire TSA officials. So 139 certification for me is the last mile distribution people, is the FedExes, the UPSs, the heavier aircraft operators. Aircraft operators and insurance companies look at a 139 certification as meaning your airport is safer than one that is not certified. 139 certification opens up additional funding sources from the FAA. That secondary runway that I was talking about, the FAA does not fund that. That is a state project, and it's typically 60% state, 40% local. Well, at $5.5 million, 40% is a huge chunk for Georgetown to come up with. The state, after me nagging for years, and I physically drove them out onto that runway. I knew where the bad spots were. I took my truck up to 60 right when I hit the bad spots, and it shook the truck violently. And I said, can you imagine landing an airplane right there? It would destroy the nose gear. He had me stop the truck, get it out, and it was months later they created a 90% program and offered it statewide. We got the designation of having the worst runway in the state of South Carolina, and we were #1 for that new program. And as soon as we get one remaining permit, the coastal zone determination, that runway is being tore out and rebuilt.
How far along are you in the process of the conversion now? I know you've been doing like environmentals for a year or so.
Oh, we're a little bit deeper than that. We did the environmentals, we did the hazardous wildlife survey. I need to package up that survey and send it off to the FAA for review. I've built our ACM, our airport compliance manual. I've built our emergency program, worked hand in hand with Brandon over at the EOC to develop that. I have the package just about ready for a submittal. What does that mean? They could say, no, Taylor, we're not interested right now. Try us again in another year or two, or they could begin working on it. But it is important to the county and really ties in with what we're talking about here with the potential economic development. I'd like to see a bigger operator here. I was talking with one group, no names. They wanted to build 100,000 square feet out in our infield under roof, freight, last mile distribution type. They wanted to fly 737-300s across the pond directly to Georgetown with freight, with minerals on board, offload it and distribute it through South Carolina. People are talking, people are asking. All of the eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, you might have seen talk about it. There's a company, SkyDrive, that they're building an operation down in Beaufort. Whisk is another one that's owned by Boeing. They're basically, and pardon my dumbing it down, it's a big drone that'll carry a person. I'm actually planning for that in this economic development area. I have 4 eVTOL ports. If the idea catches on, if they develop the battery technology, we're going to be ready for it. And a prime location, again, halfway between Myrtle and Charleston. That eVTOL hop, that 30 miles is the key number once the batteries are developed. You guys are going to learn a lot more about an airport than you ever anticipated.
It's a rich topic. Any other questions?
Do you have a handle on how many jobs in the county are supported directly or indirectly by the airport?
The last report that was done was right as I got here in 2018. It is severely outdated. It gave the airport an economic impact of $19.5 million throughout Georgetown County. And I believe the number was 43 jobs. We have since then tripled the aircraft operations here at the county. Aircraft operations, number of aircraft taking off and landing. We've added 4 new businesses already. And those 4 new businesses are employing many people. And the residual effect of 1 new employee here is 4 throughout the community. 4 additional jobs that 1 job touches. So I don't have accurate numbers. They are really, really old. The state is talking about doing another study soon.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Just to comment, Jim, don't give up on the 139. It's doable. I did it in an airport up in North Carolina. You may get to visit Atlanta more than one time, but keep up with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super. All right. Thank you for doing that.
Quite
Let's
well.
move to 34, please. I think that's Brian. Brian, thanks for your patience.
Oh, no problem. We'll just continue the excitement here. We'll talk a little bit about public transportation, the ground side at least. Walt, can I share my screen?
Yes, I think I have to stop sharing mine. There we go.
Everybody see my slide there with the CoStar TA logo?
Yep. Looks good. Yep.
So it's my understanding, Walt and I talked before the meeting got started, that my bus request is not an eligible expense. So this is our only request for funding is for the development of a passenger handling facility in the Georgetown general area. I did just want to make a quick point to everyone on the call that Georgetown has been very active in supporting our work and our services, starting with adding road use fee, about $6.50 per registered vehicle coming to CoStar TA for operations. We've used some of that money for some capital purchases as well. But a big part of it was $200,000 to match $800,000 in federal dollars to do essentially planning work, our facility development program. We are, I mean, obviously our top priority was building a new operating and maintenance facility, which I'm currently neck deep in trying to get the funding for that. But we certainly appreciated Georgetown's support for that. This, I guess, if you can see my mouse, this is a site that is on Grissom Parkway in Myrtle Beach. It will allow us to grow a little bit. Right now, we're operating out of a 1950s Ford dealership on 3rd Avenue in Conway. We can't lift a bus inside, so I've actually moved our maintenance to a rented warehouse further up 701 in Conway until we can get this built. This site also includes a passenger handling facility down here closer to Grissom Parkway. This would handle 12 buses. And the city of Myrtle Beach will be developing this parcel in the front yard to build a new state-of-the-art fire station. So this is a true instance of coordination between us and one of our constituent cities. We are also looking at replacing our current site with off-street passenger handling facility, which this is a rendering of down here in the bottom. The one last thing, though, for us to do will be to do a site evaluation and programming for a facility in Georgetown. Just a little bit of background. I don't know if you can see the yellow. We actually are two systems in one. We have an urban system, which is centered in Myrtle Beach, where the urbanized area is, along 501. I think it touches Murrells Inlet in Georgetown County, but the entirety, almost the entirety of Georgetown County is still in the rural portion of our service area, which is Astoria, Georgetown County. Our passenger handling facilities are here in Myrtle Beach. We have one in Conway that we're trying to build. I think long-term, we're looking at doing one up in North Myrtle Beach as well. But I would say before we get to North Myrtle Beach, we need to do one down in Georgetown. Currently, there are 3 routes that come into the Georgetown area A large part of our service is commuter-based service. So we're getting people to jobs along the Waccamaw Neck and up into Myrtle Beach. There are 10 or 11 trips a day each way between Georgetown and Myrtle Beach, most of which are during the peak hours. We do have a local route that currently serves Andrews, US 521 into downtown Georgetown, then down 17 past the airport, as well as to the HGTC campus down there. I think in fairly short order, we are very interested in adding a route to this area. I think we need to increase the amount of frequency between the Waccamaw Neck and Georgetown, and we also need some service up 701 Fraser Road to a lot of the development up there, a lot of retail up there, improve service to the hospital. In order to do that, really, I can only park. This is our current transfer center in Georgetown next to the Family Dollar. The Piggly Wiggly's on the other side of the Family Dollar. I can only really park 2 buses in there at one time. We would like to replace this with an off-street facility that can do 3 to 4 buses at one time. The planning for this is already funded, so I will get site selection, programming, which is what functions need to go in there, whether it's 3 buses, 4 buses. We want to put a customer service desk in there, bathrooms, a climate controlled waiting area, that sort of thing. I don't want to cook the books in any way in terms of, make any before we actually get the planning done. But I do think that there are some opportunities for reusing an existing structure, whether it's a current fueling station or something that we could work, as long as it's got good access to bring buses back in and out. I think that the facility does need a park and ride because our system is so commuter based. It would be great for people to be able to ride to the station and get on the bus. And in order to get the funding for our maintenance facility through the Federal Transit Administration, you have to show a path toward alternate fuel / lower emission vehicles. And if we were ever to bring, so we are working towards a battery electric fleet. But if we were ever to do that, we would need some sort of induction type charging at this facility so that you can get like a 30% charge in 6 minutes waiting time. But that's something that we would incorporate into our planning. Just based on some of the cost estimates that we have for the current work that we're doing, we think that we would need to spend between $2 and $3 million in order to make this happen. And that's a $400,000 to $600,000 local match, and that's essentially what we're asking for. I think that the sources for funding are fairly reasonably available. I know that this project would be eligible for a lot of different rural funding programs right now that, quite honestly, a lot of them are looking for projects to spend money on. 5311 program is probably the most likely source, and the SCDOT administers those funds within South Carolina. And so that's probably my first place to go after funding. I think that there are also some potential financing options at the federal level. One is called TIFIA. Don't ask me what that stands for. Transportation Investment. I don't remember. But you can borrow money off and pay it back with federal allocations at a very low interest rate, like a non-market interest rate. So it's essentially a federal loan program. We could look at that, especially since they're looking for rural investments. We're talking just from a timing perspective, needing these funds in year 3 or 4 of your program. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Say that last point again.
I just,
About the-
you know, I think you've got a 7-year program that you're planning for. We would not need the money until year 3 or 4 into the process. In fact, you could break it up between the 2 years, and we'd probably be fine, because you're looking at a period of construction that would probably be a year, and it could go across years if it had to.
Okay, but if you had the money now, would you use it, or there's prerequisite things that have to happen that mean it would? The reason I ask about it is we're trying to sequence them right, but we've
Right.
also got the opportunity to bond this out perhaps. And if we bonded it, we could start perhaps faster than we might in the other model. So I'm trying to understand, are you saying it needs to wait 3 to 4 years, or could wait 3 to 4 years?
It could wait. I think we have about 6 months worth of planning work to do. So you've got a little bit of time there before we really know the answers. You know, a lot of answers that you all are probably pining for anyway. So am I.
Yep.
We have to do all the environmental clearance before we can purchase property in the federal transit world. So that there's a little bit of work. Again, it's funded, so we can get it started and get it done in fairly quick order. We also have to do a Title VI, which is benefits and burdens for low income and other challenged populations. So that takes a little bit of work as well.
Brian, the lady who raised me rode the Williamsburg Transit to Myrtle Beach every day to make up beds in Myrtle Beach. And the thought of her sitting there in that green thing breaks my heart if it's 100 degrees outside.
Yes, sir.
Or 30 degrees outside. So I love this project. But to Mark's point, you know, if we all agree that this should be something that should be done, is there a rendering of a building or something where these people would be inside in a heated or cooled building, or safe? I mean, this isn't the safest place either.
Right. I think that's our goal, is to create such a facility that they could be inside waiting. In our scheduling, we like to try to minimize the amount of waiting time that you would have. Obviously, we try to schedule our routes so that they meet there and you can exchange passengers. But I think having a facility it makes it a lot easier for folks to wait. Makes it a lot.
There's no restroom. There's no restroom there either. So you go to Myrtle Beach and got all those red lights to and from.
Right. Yeah, it's an hour and a half.
By the time you get here, there's no restroom, and then you got to go to Andrews or wherever.
Yeah, I will say that the Family Dollar and the Piggly Wiggly have been awesome to us in general. But I know there's been days where they're like, "Man, I wish we weren't doing this."
Yeah.
So we would love to take that off of their plate for sure. But yeah, if I need to ramp up the speed in order to access the funding of the project, we will ramp up the speed.
Brian, would the facility look similar to the one on the previous screen, the Conway facility?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of what we're looking at. I mean, this facility actually would accommodate 6 buses plus parking for 2 more. Doesn't need to be that big. This has a passenger waiting area, a customer service office. It has a police precinct in it. So all of those are fair game when we go to program the facility in Georgetown. And we, obviously we talked to all our partners related to that. But yeah, if you guys are that excited, we will totally ramp it up.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to steer anything, Mark. I just it's just if we're going to give money, I wouldn't want it to be in limbo or just be out there. It seems like it ought to be identified for a project that's going to be useful.
Understand. Any other questions? We're at the top of our hour, and I want to honor that calendar commitment. It's been super helpful. Thank you for doing that and all you're doing with this.
Yeah,
this
thank you
important part
for
of,
your,
important part of the community.
thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So just wrapping up very quickly, we're meeting Thursday at
Carver's Bay.
our usual time at 5:30 at Carver's Bay. And that should be our last set of projects that we're going to go through. And then we're going to need you guys to button up all of your voting or scoring, and then we'll have you guys submit it to some combination of me or Walt or whatever. And then I think we will do a review, sort of a sanity review, consistency review, et cetera, and maybe have some discussions around that. Probably will also ask you, and we've got to work through this, an A, B, and C prioritization of each of those so that there'll be the scores, but then as you take into account other things, we're going to probably ask you to put them into 3 buckets: a funded bucket, a contingency bucket, and a not bucket. But we still need to give you some parameters around that in terms of how much. And Walt and I have been pinging back and forth on some questions that are going to drive that. For example, I'm still unclear what happens if we go in for joint funding on a project. We're funding half of it, somebody else is funding half of it, but it hasn't been secured yet. If that falls through, that other funding falls through, what implication does that have? Does it just come off a list and period, or, so we got to talk through some of that. So when you're choosing your priorities or making your priorities, you're very clear about how that would actually work. Same with overruns. Who's on the hook for overrun dollars? And so I think by potentially the end of this weekend, we'll have first passes of all that and how it all fits together, which would give us room. We've got till the middle of May now as a reprieve a little bit. We've got a couple-week reprieve to work through that, test our thinking, run some scenarios, and have some good old-fashioned debates. Any other thoughts or questions?
So just looking ahead, so Walt, we're out with the county council to their 3rd meeting or 2nd meeting of the month.
Yes, sir. It dawned on me that I'm on vacation on the 14th, so it's kind of hard to have that workshop, which is what Ms. Angela wanted to have on the 14th. So she has reprieved us to the 28th. So we'll have at least until the week of the 14th to finalize everything and then get it to them. But somebody may have to step in to do that since I'll be out of pocket that week.
We'll sort that out.
If it takes that long.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm delighted it gives us this little extra buffer because we were going to be good.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I was just saying, hopefully Thursday night we can nail down. I mean, I would suggest all future meetings be this same format. And our hashing out and debate can be in an online format like we're doing now. And we wouldn't have to necessarily meet in person again unless you chose to do it that way. That would be up to the group.
I know somebody's spouse that would be happy about that. And it's not me, Harris.
I have to time that news very delicately.
All right, very good. So Walt, let's you and me find time before Thursday's meeting and get a very, very specific game plan with dates and everything together. I think that'd be helpful and very doable with Jim, and knock that out. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you
Mr.
all.
Taylor.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Good one.